This is a BBC podcast. You can get all our podcasts and our terms of use at bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.
Hello, welcome to World Football on BBC World Service. I'm Alan Green. On this week's programme, from a hot prospect to a tortured soul, we'll be hearing the emotional struggles of Manchester City's forgotten man, Paul Lake.
I was almost like the ghost of games past, really. Every team picture was the most unpleasant, demoralising experience for me. It was bizarrely, I never forget this, it was the photographer. He was clicking his fingers saying, "Hello, Mr. Lake, are you with us?" And in my head I felt, no, I'm not really here.
With Manchester City hoping to win more trophies this season, one of their former players will be keeping a very close eye on their progress. A player who's had a remarkable journey trying to overcome his personal demons.
Ball dangerously inside the area. Shot comes in again and drilled inside that left corner of the net by Paul Lake. Paul Lake, it fell nicely to his right foot, picked his spot and drilled it just inside the right post. City have pulled one back. Paul Lake's the scorer.
In his early 20s, the Manchester City player Paul Lake was being talked about as a future England captain, and he only just missed out on travelling with the senior team to the 1990 World Cup in Italy. The future couldn't have looked brighter, but that career was cut short by injury. He snapped a cruciate knee ligament, and subsequent operations and rehabilitation failed to save his career. He struggled to cope, and he became clinically depressed. Well, Paul's now written his autobiography called I'm Not Really Here, and he told me about the heartbreaking moment when injury ended his dreams.
To be honest, I can recall it as if that was yesterday. And looking back, Alan, if I'm being truthfully honest, I don't really know how I coped with that. Because if you can appreciate, every single day, that's all I ever thought about. Every single day was, when can I get back? Can I get back? You know, and when I think of the times when I had depression, you know, and I really struggled with that for quite a few years, and the legacy that I have now, I've had my right leg, I've had the metalwork taken out after 15 plus operations because I have a pending total knee replacement on the right side. I had my left leg straightened 6 months ago out of all the years of compensation. So physically, the scars and the memories are there, whether I like it or not. But the emotional, the psychological aspects of what I had to deal with, you know, I do have those quiet moments where you do think, what would have happened if for instance, when I had the operation at the time, where the medical team actually made 3 or 4 phone calls to other physios at the likes of United and Chelsea and Arsenal and thought, you know, let's get 2 or 3 opinions on this, and maybe a phone call might have actually saved my career. You never know.
You know, talking to you, I begin to have suspicions as to why you called it I'm Not Really Here, the book. But you tell me.
Well, it was a torturous time, Alan, because I was I'd played 2.5 games and I was signed a 5-year contract. So contractually, I still had to perform the perfunctory roles on a match day. So every single other Saturday, I was at the game. I was almost like the ghost of games past, really. And people would see me and say, when am I back? And I'd say the usual, I'm back in 6 weeks. For some reason, that tended to give me enough time to fob people off. But every team picture, I suddenly found that I was getting further and further away from the middle. My team number had gone from being number 2 to number 5 to number 11 to being number 31 to whatever it was. I think I was almost 51 at one point, with the groundsman and the laundry lady 52 and 53, to be honest with you. And it was quite incredible, but I never felt part of it. Every team picture was the most unpleasant, demoralising experience for me, because you had the crisp new shirt there, and I hadn't worn it for the previous season, and I had to put it on again with the shorts and socks, with a pair of boots that were gleaming brand spanking new, because I hadn't been worn for 2 seasons. I'd dust them off. I'd stand there listening to all my colleagues talking about how exciting the season was, how the pre-season tour had gone, and the new players that had arrived, with their expectations, their hopes, their aspirations, the cup games, will they get in the side, what car they just changed to, where they're moving to, what part of Cheshire they're going to be moving into. All of these comments, all of these thoughts and dreams, and all this excitement, you know, it was a real, you know, buzz of and the atmosphere is electric. And yet, I couldn't be further away from all of that. I felt I was an imposter, that I had no part to play in that. And so, whilst people were talking and I was stood next to them and I had the same shirt on and I looked quite fit, I looked like I was part of it, I wasn't a part of it at all. And it was bizarrely, I never forget this, it was the photographer. I was looking around and I couldn't wait to get in my car and get away and get back to the gym and rehabilitate for whatever reason. I think it was just because I had to. He was clicking his fingers saying, "Hello, Mr. Lake, are you with us?" And in my head I felt, no, I'm not really here.
In the book you write about the problems that you then had with clinical depression. When and how did depression kick in?
I suppose it was creeping up on me as I was coming towards my sort of second, third year of rehabilitation. I'd had so many operations and I wasn't in a good place, both physically and financially. There was even one night where I can recall we were playing a home game. I think it was against Aston Villa, and I'd read the paper at the time, and I was sat in the laundry at Lilleshall in my smalls, watching my kit turning around, and just thinking, I couldn't be any further away from being a professional footballer at this moment in time. I was just going down and down into this spiral of monotony and getting nowhere fast. I started to lose contact with my friends, with my family. I was forgetting to get in touch with people, forgetting family birthdays, forgetting to pay bills. I found that I was just going out at nights and just literally pulling my hood up and walking the streets. It got to the stage where I was counting my steps. I never forget that I was able to count steps from my house in Heaton, Mersey, into the shops where I'd go and get some a takeaway. I got to the stages where it was that bad. I ended up one night, bizarrely, finished the gym session at about 10:30, and I'd walked over just to stand by a bridge over in Cheadle, just to see life going past and see the lights and hear the sounds, and just a bit of escapism really. And a police car had passed me and I clocked it in the corner of my eye, and then half an hour later it came back, and before I knew what would happen, I had two policemen at the side of me. And I don't try to belittle the thoughts of suicide, people that have those tendencies. It was just the fact that I was just escaping from my life, my drudgery. And they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm fine. I'm just going to go back home." And I left, but I didn't know why I'd sunk so. Well, I didn't know why I'd sunk so low, but I didn't know the actual sort of timescales of it, Alan. But to sort of sum that up, it was a combination of the fact that I was losing my career. I didn't know where I was going to turn to. I had no one. I had no sounding board. I had no one that I could confide in. I was worried about the long-term aspects of my injuries and my problems, and also how I was going to pay the bills. So I had all these things, and yet I still had to go and be a celebrity, if you can call it a celebrity as such, on a match day, and be this person that I obviously wasn't anymore.
I can't believe that you were left so isolated. I mean, it's one thing fellow players calling round and seeing and saying, how are you, Paul? And then they go back to their work that you can't go back to. Why didn't the club, why didn't they see that you desperately needed help psychologically?
Because it was. I always come back to the fact that it was of a time, and I suppose I'm trying to make excuses for people, but life was so busy in a football club, and you have to build for the following game, for the following game, for the following game, and also at the same time, Alan, there's always been, especially in the sort of 70s, the 80s, early 90s, a stigma attached to saying to somebody, "Look, I'm really struggling here. I'm not coping well at all with life, and I need some help." But it was eventually the fact that I couldn't listen to music anymore. I wasn't really watching the television. I couldn't really read papers. I couldn't concentrate. And I thought, this has got to change. And after months and months, I plucked up the courage to go and see the club's GP, actually, who was only a part-time guy anyway. And when I went into his clinic, he couldn't get me out. I basically broke down, and it was the best thing I did. And I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed by having to speak to this guy, where in between tears and sniffling and catching my breath, I just had to tell him where I was at. And then he realised that, he diagnosed that I had depression, clinical depression, and he'd arranged for me to go to the Priory. And that's when I spoke to the psychiatrist there, and they realised that I had what I had, that it wasn't my fault, not to blame myself, and they can help. And at that time, I was so desperate for it. They became my kind of crutch for the next 3 to 6 months, and they helped to get me back on track.
Finally, in writing this wonderful book, you've had to revisit some terrible thoughts over the last 2 decades. Do you feel bitter, Paul?
I don't, Alan. I don't, and the reason why is that I've managed to, because depression never goes away, Alan. It's how you cope with that, and I've managed to turn my life around, and ever since I saw the psychiatrists at the Priory way back in time, the mechanisms that I built to cope with life enabled me to look forward, to realise that I had something to give. I then became a qualified physiotherapist, and I'm back working at the club now. So I've built my life on what can I do next, always looking forward, always thinking what I can do and challenge myself, and that's how I've coped. I'm now actually really loving football again, and I've always been a fan, and I always will be a fan, but I'm really enjoying games, whereas a lot of ex-professional footballers don't even read the pages, and never mind turn on the television and watch a game. So I'm really pleased that I've come through that, and for me, life's about living, and I'm really happy. Okay, I've not got my mock Tudor mansion to talk about, but we're enjoying where we're at the moment, and I couldn't be in a better place, Alan.
Paul Lake, it's been an absolute privilege for me to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Paul Lake, the former Manchester City captain, talking about his struggles with depression, and it's great to see him back at the club playing his part in their revival. That's all for this week. Remember, if you want to download World Football, just go to our website. That's bbcworldservice.com/sport. Follow the links to the World Football page. And do join us again at the same time next week. Until then, always remember, World Service, World Football.